April 23rd, 2019. Shanghai Police burst into a factory in Shenzhen, China. They arrest 4 people, smash assembly lines, seize molding tools, and walk away with 200,000 paper manuals, 200,000 packages, and over 600,000 little plastic building blocks. At first glance, it looks like Shanghai Police just raided a Lego factory. The boxes are labeled with that familiar red square. There's minifigs, Technic parts, and bricks very similar to Lego. But take a closer look. That box doesn't say Lego Star Wars. It says Star Plan. Technic? No. Technician. Lego Movie 2? Nope. The Lepin Bricks 2. This is not Lego. This is Lepin, a company that made and sold Lego counterfeits. 2 years later, the Shanghai courts would sentence 9 people to prison in connection to Lepin and hit them with a multi-million-dollar fine. And that was the end for Lepin. Companies are getting good at making Lego knockoffs. Really good. In 2017, the BBC asked a Lego exec to spot the difference between a real Lego minifig and a knockoff. Here's how it went.
Which one's yours? Just have a guess for me.
I would say this is Lego. This is not.
Okay. This is Lego.
No, this is Lego.
This is Lego. Bought from Toys R Us yesterday.
You're telling me?
Built by my daughter. It's not real. It's not Lego.
If a Lego exec can't see it, there's no way the rest of us can. Since 2019, the Chinese government has really started to crack down on copyright infringers. That year, they amended a big trademark law, and since then, fines on IP infringement cases jumped 150%. And yet, Chinese knockoffs still dominate the counterfeit industry. Out of every counterfeit good the US Customs seized in 2014, 90% of them came from China or Hong Kong. Lafufus, which are fake Labubus that come from China, are all over the news. Good Morning America did a whole segment on how to spot fake ones.
People are paying so much money for these Labubus and for these collectible toys that it is really important to make sure that the authentication of the actual Labubu does happen.
And the White House's Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy says Amazon is just plastered with Chinese knockoffs.
How many small businesses have you spoken to in your career where they invested all this money, created all this IP, worked very hard, then a Chinese company just knocked it off and tried to undersell them?
You can't trust anything, really. Look, clearly there is a demand for counterfeit items, as luxury products like purses, designer shoes, and yes, even Legos become pricier and pricier. Counterfeit companies are undercutting them wherever they can. So can big companies like Lego actually do anything about this? Or are they stuck watching companies like Lepin rip them off time after time after time? Let's find out. My name's Eric Crittenden, and this is Clutch Power, a show about the ways we love Lego. Episode 10, Lego versus Lepin. In part 1, an interview with Aaron Winninger, director of the China intellectual property practice at Schwegman, Lundberg, and Wustner, a law firm that focuses on IP law. He explains the ins and outs of IP and how international companies can protect themselves from Chinese counterfeits. In a bonus segment for Patreon supporters only, I sit down with another lawyer, Dylan O. Adams of Patents Demystified on YouTube. We talk about the key differences between Lepin and other Lego competitors like Mega Bloks. Why did Lepin get shut down, but Mega Bloks is still going strong? Finally, in part 2, Aaron and I examine the counterfeit industry as a whole and how things have changed, not necessarily for the better, since the internet. So pop on your learning caps, grab a pencil, there will be a quiz at the end, that's not a joke, and get ready, because school starts now. Part 1, IP Law 101. Everyone knows Lego at this point, right? Your parents do, your kids do, probably your grandparents are at least kind of familiar. And that's all well and good, but in the black and white eyes of the law, that's not good enough. You see, for a big company to be able to protect its intellectual property in a country, a court has to designate it as well-known. And it took Lego a while to get that in China, like 2017. 40 years after Legos were first sold in China, and even after Lego had already built and opened a factory in Jiaxing. The law can take a while. But Lego's VP of Legal Affairs said that 2017 ruling was very important, and yeah, no kidding, because since then, Lego has been going after counterfeit companies. November 2017, the China Shantou Intermediate People's Court ruled that a company called Bella infringed upon Lego's copyrights by selling Lego Friends knockoffs. April 2024, a Shanghai court hit two brothers with multi-year prison sentences and a hefty fine for exactly replicating Lego bricks packaging and design. September 2025, a Shanghai court upholds a decision that the Tengu company advertised Lego and Lego Education without having the licenses to do so. $5 million fine. Lego does not mess around with knockoffs. A legal VP at Lego says she has worked really hard to build relationships with the Chinese government.
When I first arrived in China in 2018, I anticipated significant challenges in tackling counterfeits and copycats. I consider myself very fortunate to have witnessed firsthand, being here in China, the Chinese government's continuously strong efforts, support, and commitment to IP enforcement.
And even still, there's a lot of counterfeit Lego coming out of China. Right now, there's a site called Lepin.com, which as far as I can tell is just a rebrand of Lepin, selling the same kind of counterfeit Legos. There's also Lepinland.com, same kind of thing, and that's just from a quick Google search. This is the world that Aaron Wininger lives in. He's a lawyer with a really impressive resume, principal and director of the Chinese intellectual property practice at the law firm Schwegman, Lundberg, and Woessner, a chair on the American Intellectual Property Law Association China Committee, and he's quoted regularly in outlets like Bloomberg, the National Law Review, and South China Morning Post. So if anyone can explain the nuances of IP law and Lego, it's him. All right, well, I want to just start basic, because I don't have much experience with trademark law. And I imagine my listeners also do not. So what is a trademark?
I think it might help to back up a little bit even. What are like the different types of property? So, you have real property, that's like land and anything fixed to land, like your house, the trees, maybe minerals under the ground, oil. Then you have personal property, which can be tangible, intangible. Those are things that are movable, so not fixed to the land. Intellectual property can be a separate type of property or part of that personal property. And then four really big types of intellectual property. Intellectual property is unlike real property. Personal property is not something tangible that you can touch. It's a creation of the mind. It's something you've thought of and created in your mind. And the four types are patents. That protects the way something works. So if you have like a Lego robot, it might be the semiconductors inside or how the parts inside that robot interact with each other that make the robot move. Trademark, though, on the other hand, that generally indicates a source of goods, such as a word, a short phrase, a symbol. So that might be like the word Lego or the Lego logo would be a trademark, for example. And then copyright, which is also pretty relevant, is the expression of an idea, not the idea itself. So that can be things like paintings, instruction manuals. So that comes out a lot with Lego, especially in China, because you'll have people copy, say, the instruction manual or the box art, the Lego, and that would be copyright infringement. And then the fourth one, which is pretty common, actually is getting a lot more enforcement in China recently, is trade secret. And so that's confidential business information. So that can be the KFC recipe or the Coca-Cola recipe. Those are good examples of trade secrets.
Yeah. So for the Lego, we're going to mainly be looking at trademark and copyright.
That's right.
When you think of like the Chinese knockoff market with Legos, like the first one that comes to mind for me is Lepin.
So, and there are actually two different issues. There are two different cases going on simultaneously. So apparently Lepin and there in Guangdong, which I mentioned, that's really the manufacturing powerhouse of China in the south. And over from 2015 to 2019, they were selling knockoffs Lego products. And when I say knockoffs, I mean they just looked almost exactly the same. And so they had about 300 million RMB in sales. It's like about $40 million, I guess, $45 million roughly. So tremendous amounts of sales. And when they got caught, they had 30 million RMB worth of product in stock, but they were selling them for maybe 10 to 20% cheaper than real label, at least. What happened was, again, this was in Shanghai. So even though these guys were in the south, this criminal prosecution was initiated in Shanghai, the Shanghai Police, and they caught them and arrested them for copyright infringement. And then within a few months, they sentenced 9 people for up to 6 years in prison, and there's also a 90 million RMB fine.
Where is that kind of on the scale of intellectual property sentences? Is that extreme or is that kind of average?
For large scale infringement, I think that's probably around the average. Another person got 9 years. So yeah, it can be, you can get some really big prison time, even for small amounts relatively. There's one interesting case, there's some person who was infringing shoe polish. That person got a couple of years in jail, from what I remember, just for infringing on the trademark for shoe polish.
Is that a relatively new thing, like the jail time for infringing on trademarks?
Yeah, I've really started seeing it more in the last, 5-6 years. I think, though, that's actually going to slow down tremendously because a lot of the infringement would happen in the manufacturing centers, so in the southern part of China, in Guangdong, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to get the local police to enforce it there. And so Shanghai was pretty famous. There would send police sent from Shanghai to Guangdong, and they would actually arrest them, and then these people would get prosecuted in Shanghai. So imagine like the New York Police Department going down to Miami, arresting people and then bringing them back to New York City to be prosecuted. Yeah, that's not something that would happen in the U.S., but in China, at least up until last year, you could do that.
Yeah, so it started to kind of peter off.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything recently, and I suspect it has to be local police have to do the investigation and arrest. You can't really have this cross jurisdiction like it used to be able to do.
So it's not really fewer people are infringing on trademarks. It's more of like a bureaucratic issue.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a legal issue where they're not going to be able, like if you're a big international company, say Lego, it was easy. You could be based in Shanghai and just go down to the police in Shanghai and hey, we have this problem down in Guangdong or wherever, and have them deal with it for you. But now that won't work anymore. You'd actually have to go down to the local police in wherever it is in Guangdong and hope that they're willing to listen to you.
Yeah, which I can imagine will probably not go as cleanly for companies like Lego.
Right. I mean, there are issues of local favoritism, and if they're a huge employer, locally a big taxpayer, then maybe the police won't want to shut them down.
Can China, like the state, go after a knockoff company even without, if someone's knocking off like Disney, can they go after them even if Disney doesn't?
They can, although usually it'll start with a criminal complaint by the victim. So Disney or Lego would actually raise the issue. And also it's helpful to provide evidence. By law, there's a certain amount of sales volume you need to have to be able to be prosecuted criminally. So it's helpful to show, these are the guys infringing, this is the minimum amount that they're infringing by, which meets the statutory requirement.
Is there a minimum for a civil complaint?
I've seen actually some some civil cases ridiculously low, like for a few hundred renminbi, like $50 maybe.
Really?
Yeah, in the civil case, it's interesting because you'll see people lose a very small amount of money. Nonetheless, they'll appeal all the way to the Supreme People's Court, the highest court in China, over a few $1,000s. I'm just not understanding the logic behind that.
So when a company like Lego sees a company like Lepin basically ripping them off, would their first move be to the state to file that criminal complaint?
The first thing you want to do is your own investigation. So unlike the U.S., there's no discovery. So which means that you can't actually ask the other side to give you documents explaining what they're doing, like what's their sales value, where they're selling and so on. And in the U.S., you can actually ask for that in a civil litigation. In China, you can't. So you generally want to try to get as much information as you can before you actually file suit. And then I would investigate the sales channels if I don't really know what they are. Like, are they exporting them? Are they selling them just online through like Taobao, sort of like Amazon, I guess, or eBay? To figure out what's the best route, what's the volume. If it's a small volume and it's just online, I would try to do a takedown. Yeah, so you go with these e-commerce sellers, the equivalent of Amazon, you say, hey, these guys are ripping me off. Here's my trademark or my copyright, and they're selling the same exact thing without my permission. And then Taobao, they'll just take it down.
What I find interesting is, you look back at Lepin, like their box, yes, it looks like Lego, but it doesn't say Lego on it,
Right.
Why would a company like that get that close to Lego without directly just putting Lego on the box?
Yeah, I mean, I would speculate if the theory is, we're not infringing the trademark, so we're okay, even though I don't know, maybe they just don't realize that they're probably infringing the copyright, though. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you also see where they'll use their own trademark that sounds similar to the real goods, so it's spelled differently, for example. But otherwise, it'll look very, very similar.
Yeah. Well, there was the case with Tengu with the Lego education thing from last year. Is that that's an example of trademark, right?
Yeah, I think what happened was they were using real Lego products, essentially. The issue was they were also operating the stores, or they were using Lego activity centers or Lego education. And I think that was the issue.
So why do some of these court cases end up criminally and some with just money? Is it just the state decides to prosecute or not?
Yeah, it's just a matter of going to the police and convincing them to go after the infringers. And sometimes perhaps the police just don't want to. They don't think it's a big enough case. Or maybe they just, the owner doesn't want to go to the police for whatever reason.
Because with Lepin, that case ended criminally, right?
But on top of that, they also went after them directly. So it wasn't just a government prosecution, there was a civil case. And that was for trademarks. And they won in April 2021. Lego won 30 million renminbi. So these guys got hit twice, once for criminal prosecution, one in civil.
Are there any practices a company like Lego can do to kind of protect themselves from being infringed upon?
Well, certainly. I mean, the most important thing to do is to file, to register your IP, and to understand that your IP is territorial. So a U.S. trademark only protects you in the U.S. If you want to have protection in China, you actually need to go to China and register your trademark there. Copyright's a little bit different, but at least on the trademark side, you definitely have to register. Same with patents. If you don't file, you have no protection.
What is the process to file a trademark? Like, let's say I work for Lego, I want to file a new Lego trademark. What's the process?
Well, the very first thing you do is do a search. It's optional, but a lot of people recommend you do a search to make sure no one else is already using the trademark. You don't want to waste your time at the trademark is filing for something that's already out there. Once you're happy with that search, you actually will file your application with the trademark office. And the things you have to do is select your classes, like what you want to protect. So someone could have a trademark on Lego, for toys, but then someone else in educational services, perhaps. But it's probably okay also to have a trademark by a third party with Lego for something totally unrelated, like things. I mean, Lego may not be the best example because Lego's pretty famous, but for something a little bit less famous, it is possible. So you have to choose your classes that you want protection in very, very carefully.
Interesting. For companies as big as Lego, or I'm thinking Disney, do they have to file a class, or do they just kind of cover all classes?
So it used to be you would just file everything that is potentially relevant. But now there's the trademark law has been amended, and I'll probably amend it soon again, where there is a good faith requirement. So there has to be a good faith intent to use your trademark. So you can't just file on something totally outrageous and unrelated to your product that you'll never use.
Right.
Yeah, you can't do like, I don't know, Disney photocopiers or something just totally unrelated.
How specific do the classes get?
I guess there's some 30 or more classes.
Okay. Yeah.
And then within them, there are subclasses.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like, what would Lego be? I guess what class would they be?
There's probably something for toys, probably educational, clothing might be relevant because they might sell Lego t-shirts. They like entertainment because of the Lego movies.
If I am, let's say I'm Lego and we don't have a trademark in China and I want to file one, but someone already owns the Lego trademark, what action steps can I take?
So there, you can file a cancellation. And so usually what we used to do is file cancellation for non-use. So we say if you haven't used your trademark in 3 years, because that used to be a really big problem. China's cut down on this a lot, but we call them squatters. So the big issue was China uses, and this isn't a bad thing, it's just the way the Chinese system is. I think there is some merit to it, but China is a first to file system for trademarks. That means whoever files first gets the right. Well, the US is a first to use system. So whoever used it first gets the right. And I think that throws off a lot of American companies when they enter China, not understanding that different system. So their squatters would go in and register up-and-coming companies' trademarks. And that's happened, I think, like to Tesla, to Groupon, lots of companies. And then when you want to use that trademark, you can't. You'll apply for your trademark and it gets rejected. And then you'll try to buy that trademark from that squatter. And if they're nice, they'll sell you for cheaply. They usually demand like an excessive amount of money. And then you'll have to go after them for a cancellation action, say for non-use. Now you can also go for bad faith. But before it was always non-use, you have to prove they haven't been using it for 3 years. And then in my experience, what happens is these companies will come back and find some handwritten sales receipt from a few years ago, proving that they sold, a couple items of whatever it is. And it's just hard to disprove. So that was a mess. It's much easier nowadays, though, to cancel trademarks for non-used or if they've been filed in bad faith.
What is the bad faith?
So usually it can be things like there's some sort of pre-existing relationship. So we've seen, for example, factories that are manufacturing for the U.S. company. They'll register the trademark. The Chinese factory will register the trademark of the person of the U.S. company. So we've seen that. It's just to protect you, so no one else registers it. But then when you try to move factories, different suppliers that get angry, they threaten to sue.
So like a squatter would be a bad faith example, right? Because they're just trying to undercut.
Right. They're not really using it, and they're already famous in the U.S.
Yeah.
That's probably a good example of bad faith.
Is bad faith pretty easy to uphold in court?
I mean, if it's an obvious case, then it is. I mean, the issue, too, is that sometimes you won't get the result you want at the trademark office, and so you'll need to sue in court. And that's the same. Sometimes people don't like decisions at lower courts, especially, and so you have to appeal. But a lot of times, once you get to a higher level court, they're really happy to rule in your favor and give you really good results. They'll even raise the damages. They'll say, you won too little, hike up the damages.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, the people who have got like $50 go all the way up to the highest court, and then they're out a bunch. How else can companies protect themselves? Like, I'm thinking if they're exporting these knockoffs internationally.
And so that's another thing you can do also is just go to customs and register your trademarks and copyrights with Chinese customs. And that's really good because not only do they block import, but they'll block the export. So if you have a Chinese trademark or copyright, you can actually block it from being exported to all these other countries. And since China is really still, I think, the factory of the world for a lot of these products, if you can block it at the source through customs, it's so much more efficient than having to go to all these other countries and then going to their customs or filing lawsuits in the 100 or so other countries they might be exporting to.
Yeah. So what information would you give to customs?
Yeah, your IP, like copies of your registered trademarks and copyrights. You'd want to give them samples of the product. You can actually go down. I know the larger companies will actually have classes for customs. Explain what the products are. How you can tell real products from fake products. I mean, because that's another issue. You don't want customs holding up your legitimate authorized product from export, right? So you want to make sure they're only holding back the counterfeit ones. You try to identify the ports that these are being shipped through, because those are the ones you want to specify. Usually those will be in the south, because a lot of this stuff is just manufactured in Guangdong. If you can even figure out who the sellers are, that would be really good too. That way you know exactly who to look out for and where to look out.
Okay, I know that was a lot of information, and I hope you were taking notes because I did say there was going to be a quiz, remember? Okay, you ready? Question 1. What's the difference between copyright and trademark? Okay, I was looking for a copyright is content, like a specific Lego set. A trademark is a brand element, like the Lego logo. Question 2. How can Lego protect itself from counterfeits? Okay, I'm looking for they can file a patent, they can check with the country's customs, or they can build a good relationship with the government. And question 3. How has the internet changed counterfeiting? Oh wait, we didn't cover that one yet? Okay, well, I guess you'll just have to get the answer in part 2, just ahead. Oh, well, unless you're a Patreon supporter, in which case we're going to take a brief pit stop into the world of Mega Bloks to see why that's allowed, but Lepin isn't. All right, hit that break music. Part 2. Knock knock. Who's there? Knockoff. That worked better on paper. That wasn't that good. We'll just call this part 2. Knockoffs. I like Smiskies. They're these little glow-in-the-dark men that come in blind boxes. I have like 4 or 5 that kind of hide around the house. If you open the medicine cabinet, there's a little guy in there washing his head, or on the bookshelf, there's a little guy doing yoga. But Smiskies, for some reason, are like kind of hard to find in stores. I don't know what it is, because like I see so many like Sunny Angels and Labubus, but like I've seen like 5 Smiskies. So a few months ago, my girlfriend and I were at the mall. What do I see? A stall with Smiskies. Awesome. But, you know, I think I'm an intelligent guy. My guard's kind of up because you never know. So I scrutinize the box. It looks good, looks right. It's $20, which, you know, that's not like super cheap. That's about what you pay for a Smiski at like Pop Mart or another reputable place. So I buy it. I get home, open it. It's a fake. Yeah, like the quality is obviously worse. Doesn't even glow in the dark. He looks like a little melted. But of course, I love this little mutant guy regardless. Right now, he's hanging over my computer staring at me. So that's one half of the knockoff pie, a counterfeit. Buying something thinking it's real and getting disappointed. The other half of it is dupes, where the customers knowingly buy knockoffs since they're cheaper. To these customers, it's the impression of luxury that's important, not the authenticity. And dupes are everywhere. Like, have you been on TikTok lately?
My mom's favorite lipstick was discontinued, and I'm trying to find a dupe.
They don't rip. I had them for 3 months. As you could tell, there's not one single rhinestone missing. Yep.
Is the $19 Versed Gentle Pore Clearing Serum a dupe?
Bessie, I have a leak. I have a dupe.
And TikTokers, they're like pretty unabashed about it.
If I can get a better deal, it makes the cost per wear so much lower, and I can buy more things.
And how would you say it fares in terms of quality?
Comparable.
Comparable.
Just that for the price I paid, is so much more value.
That's TikToker Daniel Chan, who's in his mid-20s. And based on several surveys, people in that age range go crazy for dupes. A BI study found that 70% of that age demo buy less expensive knockoffs of more expensive name brand products. For another survey of 3,000 young adults, over half of them were happy with the dupe they bought. And the majority of these dupes or knockoffs or counterfeits, whatever you want to call them, come from China. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development says China continues to be the primary source of counterfeit goods. Shein, the king of cheap fast fashion, is supplied by several factories across China. And product designers all over the internet say their products are consistently being duped and sold on Amazon for cheaper. So I wanted to chat with Aaron about the knockoff industry and see how things have changed in the decades he's practiced IP law. There's definitely like that idea of like the Chinese knockoff. Is that something China's trying to like minimize?
I think so. I think there's a lot more enforcement. In fact, I mean, something you don't see in the U.S., which you do see a lot in China, is criminal enforcement. So if there are huge amounts of knockoffs, I mean, I think a lot of states have similar laws on the books in the U.S., but you almost never hear about it. But in China, they'll go out, they'll raid your factory, and they'll send you to jail for years at a time. And they're not shy about that.
Why are there so many counterfeit items coming out of China?
I think now the economy in China is just hurting. I think and there's just a lot of pressure to export because the economy is so slow. There's not that many local purchasers as much anymore. There's been a housing recession in China going, I guess, like 5-6 years already. I would say like maybe a quarter to a third of the economy is private housing and housing related. Because you have to build a house, so it's a lot of concrete and steel, furniture, everything that goes into that. So that's slowed down tremendously. But it's really not as slowed down. It's been negative. A lot of bankruptcies over the last couple of years. So I think there's a lot of economic competition that way, and there's need to export, whether legitimate or counterfeit.
Yeah, just any export is a good thing.
Right.
What kind of demand is there for counterfeit products?
So China ranks cities by tiers. You'll have first tier cities, which are the most advanced. So it'd be like Beijing, Shanghai, I guess Shenzhen, those are probably first tier cities. Then you have second tier cities, which are still pretty advanced, but not up to that level. Those tend to be like capitals of provinces. So like Hangzhou, it's the capital of the Zhejiang province. It's also pretty rich and well off. That's where Alibaba is located. And then you have third tier cities, which are less developed. And so I think, again, I don't really have statistics, but I guess I would speculate that if you go to a third tier city, counterfeits are much more in demand. I don't think people may care as much about paying for something authentic. Well, as compared to a first tier city, a lot of people just do not want to buy counterfeit products. They want to get the real products. And you'll see a lot of these stores, luxury brand stores will actually have these really fancy stores or restaurants even in these first tier cities like Shanghai and Beijing.
Yeah, but if you go to a third tier city, that same store is getting counterfeited.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What are some of the most common items that are counterfeited?
Items that are easy to produce. I used to see a lot of clothing. Clothing was very popular. Handbags also are very popular for counterfeits. You used to be able to go, I guess now it's mostly online, but before you could go to these markets in Beijing, I guess the famous one was called the silk market, I think. And then in Shanghai, there's this underneath the Science and Technology Museum. It used to be you could go, you ask for a handbag, and then they have like a little secret door, open it up, and there'd be this huge closet full of counterfeit bags. So I don't know if that's still, I know the market's still there. I don't know if the counterfeits are still there.
How has the internet changed sort of the counterfeit industry?
That's actually a good question. So a big thing which has changed a lot, and I don't know if there's really the same thing yet in the US, is live streaming. So people will go on to, I guess the Chinese equivalent of Douyin, is TikTok. And they'll do live stream. They'll go for hours and hours selling products online. And that's apparently very popular. And so occasionally you'll have counterfeit products that way. That's a little bit harder to police just because it's video. It's not like a static image on the internet that's easy to catch.
So it's kind of like the modern day home shopping network.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, like QVC or home shopping network.
Yeah.
So apparently it's really popular. There's another company, there's an e-commerce seller. I won't name them, but they're not very good at policing counterfeits. And they're more of a social buying thing. So what you want to do is you want to get your friends to do like a group purchase. And the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. And they have a lot of counterfeits. So you can buy, say, fake Nike sneakers. You get 10 of your friends to buy them together. Each buy your own pair of Nike sneakers, then you get a discount.
Would you say the internet's made it easier to sell counterfeit items?
Yes, and I guess it's easier, but also it's easier to get caught.
Okay.
Right, because before you had to know which store to go into, and who to talk to. So that made it harder, but also made it harder to get caught.
Now the seller has to be a little more upfront.
Right, about what they're selling, and you can just look at the price points and know it's counterfeit.
Yeah, is that usually the first indicator of a counterfeit item?
I think so. Usually you'll see the price points lower than the real one. Sometimes what we used to see also is it's not really, what's say counterfeit, but unauthorized. So I've seen where a lot of things are manufactured legally under China, but perhaps they'll sell one with an extra shipped at the factory. And then we'll see this clothing, which, as far as I can tell, is authentic, but probably wasn't authorized because the price point is so low. It's only for the local Chinese market, but it's pretty much the same exact thing as overseas, but the quality is really good.
That last bit with Aaron reminded me of part of my interview with Blue Milk Figs, who has a complete collection of every Star Wars minifig. He told me about collectors who go after prototype figures.
You should never see one. In theory, Lego should be destroying those when they're done. They do make it out into the world, and then you're probably going to want to talk about the quote-unquote prototypes that were a whole bunch of them released here for a while because of a certain factory, south of the U.S. border that was making night shift figures and then calling them prototypes. So, a prototype is something that Lego tests, and it could be a test print, it could be a new mold. There's some kicking around out there. I know people have some. How do you tell what it, if it's, authentic, it's gonna be really difficult.
Yeah.
And then, if you see one, multiple, say it's a monochrome looking Darth Vader, well, that was probably made at a factory illegally.
If I had one piece of advice, no matter if you're buying Lego or Louis Vuitton or Yeezy, do your research. And so many cops have said on so many newscasts.
If you do see a deal online which appears too good to be true, it probably is.
Thank you, Manchester Police Detective Inspector David Pester from 14 years ago. Oh, sounds like class is over. Thanks to Aaron Winninger for joining me for this episode. What a genuine wealth of knowledge that guy is. He's not in the social media like a lot of the people I have on this show, but I put his contact info in the show notes. If you're a U.S. company that needs counseling on patent and trademark, why not reach out? Also, big thanks to Dylan O. Adams of Patents Demystified for chatting with me on the Patreon bonus. The YouTube name, you understand exactly what you're getting into, but he has some great just videos if you want to learn more about patents and trademarks and copyrights and intellectual property. It's good to study up because, maybe I'll have another quiz for you. And of course, thank you for listening to this episode. If you want to support the show, please share it by word of mouth. You could tell a friend, you could tell your online Lego buddies. And of course, following the podcast everywhere is a massive help. It is the same handle everywhere, clutchpower.pod. I also want to say, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you can leave a review, genuinely, I did not expect that to help as much as it did. Please do that, seriously. Even if it's just like 5 stars, this was great. Or even 4 stars, this was great. Or 3 stars. Just any stars, really. Maybe not 1 star. You get the point. If you want to step up your support even more, you can become a patron. You'll get extra content for every episode, along with a special digital Lego mock. And oh boy, this one's really special. This time I replicated a Lego Millennium Falcon, but in true Lepin energy, I wanted to make it as unstable as possible. If you build it and it doesn't fall apart very easily, you probably built it too well. I want you to have that Lepin experience. That one's on me. Go nuts. My name's Eric Crittenden. This has been Clutch Power. Stay connected.